came from a time millions of years before us. And they're still here, lurking in the shadows. They grew tired of hiding away beneath our feet. It was time to take over the planet, which once had been theirs. Their numbers were vast, and no barrier could stop them. Built like tanks, and with weapons to match, their power was awesome. This was the night of the Beetle. Mere humans were defenseless against their armory. The Beetle forces massed for the final assault. The time had come. The invasion had begun. The idea of giant beetles taking over the world is pure fantasy. In reality, no beetles ever attack us directly. And the truth about these amazing creatures is far stranger than fiction. Old movies exaggerated the threat of giant insects, but beetles, which can be as big as your hand, match up to many of the myths. Stag beetles do have spectacular weapons, and pound for pound, beetles are the strongest creatures on Earth, lifting up to 100 times their weight. And they've been around for nearly 300 million years, way before the dinosaurs. Above all, there are far more kinds of beetle than of any other sort of animal on Earth. They are indeed the stuff of legends. But why are beetles so special? Revolutionary discoveries about them and how they could be crucial to our survival have only recently come to light. Biologists have begun to unlock the beetle's secrets. Professor Tom Eisner of Cornell University was the first to discover some of their hidden powers.
Well, let's see what we've got here. This is the great morning treasure hunt. Bugs, bugs, bugs everywhere. Looks good.
The hordes of insects drawn to Tom's light trap in Florida's surviving scrubland are a great source of discovery.
There's no way you could ever run out of things to look at if you study insects.
And that's especially true of beetles.
Think of it. 1 in 4 animals on Earth is a beetle. 300,000 beetles have been described, and we know that's only a small fraction. There are probably anywhere between 5 and 20 million beetles out there.
Beetles are some of the most colorful creatures on Earth, and their tough, tank-like design is incredibly adaptable. It comes in a phenomenal range of sizes, from 1/4 millimeter to over 15 centimeters, and can take almost any shape. Scarab beetles often sport fancy horns. While weevils have the oddest snouts. Some beetles can run like lightning, and their powerful jaws can bite through solid wood or slice up prey on land or underwater. Tough wing cases are the beetle's trademark, allowing them to survive almost anywhere and protecting delicate inner wings. Despite their heavy armor, most beetles can fly, if a little clumsily at times. Perhaps because they can be slow to escape, beetles are masters of self-defense. Their very colors and iridescence spell danger to predators. For most beetles that are flashily colored taste foul, and some are highly poisonous. Many get their protection from the plants they eat.
Some insects can actually tolerate the noxious chemicals in plants. They accumulate them in their own bodies and use them for defensive purposes of their own.
This beetle feeds on willow.
Now, if you can tolerate a chemical, why not use it? And that's exactly what the larva of the willow beetle does. It accumulates the chemical in its own body and uses it for defense. Disturb this animal and it squirts out little droplets from turrets on its side. It doesn't even waste these droplets because once the enemy takes off, it sucks them right back into the glands. It's a very powerful repellent. Actually, ants don't even have to touch the larva itself to be repelled by these compounds. Just being near one of these droplets is enough to make the ant turn around and flee.
But ants aren't the only threat to beetles. In Florida's swamp forests, silken death traps up to 5 feet across are spun by golden orb-web spiders. They catch masses of insects, but Tom Eisner knows that spiders are finicky eaters, and their discerning palates have revealed some of the beetle's secrets.
All right, let's see what she does with the Lycus beetle. She's tasting it again. And again, the beetle is absolutely motionless, death feigning. She does not like what she tastes. And now, let's see, she's trying a different part of the beetle, but now I think she's starting to cut the threads. She brings them to between her fangs, cuts them. Yeah, she's definitely cutting the threads out now around the beetle. And there's a good reason for this. This beetle is constantly distasteful.
As this toad will find out if it tackles a bombardier beetle. For this creature's firepower leads to instant rejection.
Any frog or toad that tried a bombardier once is likely to say, I'll be darned if I'll ever try this a second time.
So what is the bombardier's secret?
Now, I'm going to make believe that I'm an ant, and I'm going to use these surrogate mandibles, these forceps, to bite one of the beetle's legs. And he fired in precisely that direction. When a bombardier fires, it's actually generating an explosion. It's quite a remarkable mechanism. There are 2 sets of chemicals stored in separate chambers. So when, say, an ant bites its leg, what he does, he mixes the chemicals from the 2 chambers. The mixture explodes, becomes hot. The heat expands the chemicals, and the expansion generates the force for the ejection. Enough heat is generated in that explosion to heat the mixture to 100 degrees centigrade. So the enemy is actually hit with boiling hot fluid that consists of very irritating compounds, the perfect chemical to tell a predator to take off. Well, this is a completely different beetle. It may look like a bombardier, but it's twice as big and it sprays a completely different chemical. Galerita is as great a marksman as the bombardier. It can aim in any direction, which means that wherever it is bitten, it can direct its spray. What it sprays is formic acid, which is a potent irritant, and it sprays it at 85% concentration. That's about as strong a concentration of acid as is produced by an animal in nature. 10% of his body is actually formic acid. He has an incredibly high defense budget. I love bombardier beetles. I mean, they're unique. I mean, imagine, here's an animal that produces a fluid at boiling hot temperature. It never uses it aggressively. It uses it purely for defense. Shouldn't we learn something from that? Now, there's a marksman for you. Imagine being little like a beetle and being attacked by ants. This is the perfect defense.
Even without a bombardier's arsenal, some beetles still surprise ants. Flea beetles live up to their names. Ants have no chance. Amazingly, some beetles don't even try to evade ants. This underground nest is home to thousands of male ants and must be one of the most dangerous places on Earth for other insects. Small flies, cockroaches, and countless other victims are sliced up to provide food for insatiable ant grubs. And yet, one tiny beetle walks unharmed through the heart of the colony. It survives because it's a walking chemical factory. If inspected, the beetle relaxes and allows ants to lick special hairs on its back, which taste of dead insects to ants. This triggers ants to carry the beetle to the brood chamber, as if it were food for the grubs. And this is just where the beetle wants to be, as it too feeds on insect corpses. The ants even regurgitate sugar onto the beetle's head, as they do to sweeten food for their grubs. This beetle cheats its way to meals by cracking ant chemical codes, but many kill for themselves. Giant ground beetles are voracious predators, and locusts are easy meat. Spotted water beetles match piranhas for ferocity and tear victims limb from limb. Few predators bother slugs and snails, whose shells and toxic slime usually protect them. But beetles are not deterred and actually follow slime trails. The violet ground beetle pursues slugs. Like a bloodhound following the scent of its quarry, the beetle tracks its prey. Wherever the slug goes, the beetle follows, tasting the trail with its mouth parts. Ground beetles slaughter many slugs in Britain, and garden snails too are victimized. Snail-tracking beetles target them. Snails shells foil most attackers, and the froth they spew out is a second line of defense. But only delays the inevitable under persistent attacks from this killer beetle. Evidence for beetle attacks is everywhere. Beetles are the most numerous vegetarians on Earth and nibble almost every part of every plant. By specializing to cope with tough diets, they have come to exist in far more forms than are found in any other animal group on Earth, and a single tree can harbor some 300 kinds. This beetle simply bites through a main vein. Sticky latex oozes out and is cut off from the rest of the leaf. The beetle can now feed on the unprotected leaf tip. Courgette leaves have a network of poison canals, but squash beetles cut trenches right through them. This beetle can again feed freely, having dodged the worst of the chemicals. These Panamanian vines have few poisons, and beetles can feast on them. But with few toxins in their diet, the beetles could make good eating themselves. This tortoise beetle has a tough shield, but its young can be decimated. Wasps and shield bugs are their deadly enemies. But this beetle is one of the best insect parents of all. The mother guards her eggs under a leaf, and when her grubs have hatched, she stays close and feeds alongside them. She can't afford to stray far, as the forests are full of hungry bugs. Alert to danger, she spots an intruder. But while she is seeing one bug off, another sneaks in. Even a diligent mother loses some grubs to the bugs, but her young would have no chance without her. Her brood huddles tightly while there is still danger. But when the coast is clear, they can start feeding again. As they grow, the beetle grubs move from leaf to leaf, stripping stems as they go. On flat leaves, mother's shield protects them. But here, exposed on all sides, she can't always stop the bugs dragging her babies from her. It's time to move on. Stragglers are vulnerable, and she must keep an eye on them. Danger is never far away. Incredibly, she encourages wayward grubs to head back and join the others. After 2 weeks, the survivors are ready for a big change in their lives, and Mother is still there to protect them. The grubs settle down and transform into pupae, transitional stages of beetles, like the chrysalids of butterflies. Adult bodies take shape inside these tough cases. Mother's job is nearly done. Soft white bodies emerge during the night when few predators are hunting. The young beetles cluster together and seem to help new siblings find their feet. By dawn, their shields have hardened, and the onslaught on leaves resumes. But beetles are not always bad for plants. They fertilize thousands around the world in return for pollen and nectar. Many beetles find a mate among the flowers. Soldier beetles scramble for mates on flowers, but high in the Ecuadorian Andes, razor grasses are one beetle's battleground. A male caliper beetle, the size of a large mouse, chews through the tough stem of a giant razor grass to reach the sugary pith. Only then will a female approach. She lacks the spectacular horns of the male, but she's not the aggressive one. A stem opened by one male attracts rivals. A challenger approaches from above, and he must be seen off. The opponents brandish their weapons and try to intimidate one another. Neither backs down, and a fight is now inevitable. The best tactic is to get a horn under your opponent. Then, while you lift, you pull his legs away. And if you can get a grip yourself, you've won. Having seen off the challenger, the winner claims his prize. While the female feasts on his sweet stem, he takes his chance to mate with her. Male caliper beetles tempt females with sugary treats, but others rely on being flashy. These show-offs do it after dark. Fireflies are really beetles and produce light by mixing two chemicals together. Mark Branham has been decoding their signals.
It's very magical working at the site because It's the only place you can combine the 4th of July and a whole chorus of frogs at the same time. I think natural light, bioluminescence, has always been very awe-inspiring. And the fact that there's something which is being communicated in this incredible way, a glow on a hot summer night, is even more magical when you know what it says.
Fireflies are known to recognize others of their kind by their flashes. But Mark is seeing if they can use them to choose a mate. Males of one kind hover and flash, looking for female replies from the ground. But some are fakes.
Well, I can construct flash signals on a computer and then hook the signal to a small light bulb, which would then simulate a female firefly. Some of the males are quite bold and they fly straight down, and there's not a lot of dialogue before they actually make their move.
Males seem far from choosy, and as long as a fake flashes roughly like the real thing, will often land right beside it and keep on flashing.
Once they find out that it is not a real firefly, they just sort of act very disgusted and they fly away.
Males may not be too fussy, but to see if females are more discerning, Mark places one in a glass vial beneath another fake firefly and plays a slow male signal. What will she make of it? No response.
He's not too bad, but, I've seen better.
But what about a really fast flasher?
Ah, wow, that's a firefly.
Females reply to faster flashing males, and maybe choose better mates that way. Firefly displays begin to make sense. But some beetles signal very differently. Longhorn beetles rasp out loud warnings using a file on their backs. And each species hits a different note. By rubbing rough bodies against wing cases, patent leather beetles are the most talkative insects of all. Families live in rotten logs and use 14 different signals in courtship, defense, and while tending their young. Tok-tok beetles are far less eloquent and are named after their one simple signal. Another drummer produces perhaps the most unwelcome insect sound of all. Death watch beetles decimate timbers in old houses and rap on them with their heads. Their eerie chorus gave rise to macabre folklore as far back as the 17th century. The beetles were often heard during the small hours, when people gathered around a sickbed. The sound of the death watch beetle was a sure omen of death. But what do the signals really mean? Using a small loudspeaker to vibrate a piece of plastic, Tristram Wyatt talks to these beetles.
Well, in the foreground, we've got a male beetle who's tapping. And each time the male taps, I'll pretend to be the female and respond. So he taps, and I respond. He taps. So far as we can tell, the taps from males and females are identical. The females wait for the male to tap first and respond to him. So the only way that he knows that he's talking to a female is because the female, or me, is responding within a second. Each time he gets a fix, he's hoping to pin down the direction the female's in, although in fact he's not very good at it. But he gets enough fixes, he circles in towards her, and this can take quite a long time, but eventually they're going to meet up. But what you'll find in this case is that instead of a female that he thought he was talking to, he's really been talking to a loudspeaker and a piece of plastic. So he's going to be frustrated when he arrives, but that's life.
But how does he fare with real females?
The females stay put and just respond when the male taps somewhere near them. The males tap at intervals and move in between, looking for the female. So it's just as well that the female stays put, because otherwise it would be a bit like trying to meet somebody at a station. You always have to have one person who agrees to stay in one place, otherwise you go past each other time and time again. Sometimes he'll keep on tapping even when on top of the female. Now we have a feeling that the female is actually weighing the male as he climbs on top. You can make an unattractive male more attractive by putting a blob of blue tack on his back to make him heavier.
But without such help, this lightweight gets turned down. But most beetles don't use their heads to find a mate. They communicate with chemicals. The tiny oriental beetle has become a scourge of American golf courses, gardens, and crops since being introduced from Japan accidentally. They are so small that we often carry on around them unawares, while they are very successfully finding their way to one another and multiplying at an alarming rate. Once their numbers have built up, damage soon follows. But the beetles don't do it all themselves. Skunks visit the fairways at night and dig in for a bonanza of beetle grubs. Mike Villani began to deal with the beetles by taking masses of grubs back to his lab to rear adults from them. Filtered air was passed over virgin females in a glass chamber, and their smell collected in absorbent crystals. Concentrated perfume of female was then tested on males in a wind tunnel. A fan drives air down the length of this contraption, where it is drawn into a large vacuum tube. Charlie Lynn ran the first test. He placed a male onto a small platform, exposed the female scent lure to their airflow, and watched for a reaction. The male responded immediately. Beetle antennae are loaded with thousands of receptors, which only respond to particular chemicals, and this male was clearly reacting to the female odor. But would he fly to the source?
We weren't sure at that point whether males would even fly in the tunnel. In fact, I was very apprehensive about the ability of these insects to perform in the flight tunnel. I was astonished the first time I saw these beetles fly. At the time we did the test, I knew of no other lab that had attempted to fly the oriental beetle.
Since the males would fly, Charlie started to pinpoint which particular scent from within the blend originally collected was causing the response, by trying different female scents in turn. The tests went so well that the key chemical was identified within days and an artificial scent manufactured. Back on the golf course, it was time to try it out. Paul Robbins and Mike Villani first set out beetle traps in 1993. They pushed rubber bungs impregnated with the artificial female scent into the traps.
Okay, let's get the next one. Excellent.
On this golf course, no adult beetles had been seen, and there was no clear evidence of damage. Would any respond to the lures?
As we set out the traps, the beetles rose out of the grass, like a swarm of bees.
They just virtually bubble out of the ground.
Originally, we had hoped that we would be able to count the number of beetles in the traps, but we were counting them in quarts.
And the very first day we collected well over 100,000 insects.
These traps now act as early warning devices to detect oriental beetles before they become a problem. We've only just worked out the chemistry of these insects, but we've used a substance from blister beetles for centuries. They come in many colors, but they all contain the chemical cantharidin, better known as Spanish fly, a notorious aphrodisiac. Men have used this dubious sex aid since Roman times, but often with fatal consequences. Just a handful of these beetles can kill. But their very toxicity is of great interest to Tom Eisner.
Here's something wonderful. Blister beetles, 2 different species. These are among the most chemically protected of all beetles.
Tom and his co-workers have shown cantharidin to be the beetle's lifeline. It defends them, and it's the most valuable gift that a male can offer a female.
In courtship, the male actually transfers cantharidin to the female. Now, imagine a female about to accept the male. Wouldn't it be nice if she knew how much she's about to get? Well, in fact, she may be able to tell from the smell of the male how much cantharidin he has. And on that basis, either accept the male or reject the male. He literally puts the substance in the sperm package and the female gets a gift. She takes the gift, in turn transfers it to the eggs, and this protects the eggs.
The blister beetle's patent elixir could now prove a lifesaver for us too. In China, a modified form of Spanish fly is being used to treat cancer. Tom believes that almost any stage of any beetle could be a valuable source of medicine.
I'm somewhat mystified by the fact that there are no more drugs from bugs than there are. Could it be that insects are simply not liked well enough and we've been neglecting them for that reason? But there may be indigenous people who are different in their attitude toward insects.
In Ecuador, people have a much closer relationship with beetles. Children make lanterns with cucuyos, luminous click beetles, and shamans use the same beetles in a bizarre ritual test for pregnant women. He chants, boy or girl, and lets the beetle decide. Click beetles can jump, and landing on all 6s signifies a boy. The people here also use fallen palm trees to cultivate their favorite beetle. The scent from slots cut in a trunk attract palm weevils within minutes. These large black beetles come here to mate. And while the female uses her snout to drill a hole for her eggs, the male fertilizes her. 2 months later, Gabriel Tapuy listens for developments. Something is moving inside. It's time for an unusual harvest. Weevil grubs. A single tree yields over 100 of these giant grubs, and they are considered well worth the effort of collecting. Some are boiled up to extract their oil. The rest are cleaned and wrapped in leaves. The weevil oil is collected and saved for later, while the bundle of grubs is now ready for baking over hot coals. 20 minutes later, the feast begins. These grubs are truly tasty and full of proteins and nourishing oils, and they are popular all over South America. Nothing is wasted. But the grubs have another, more significant use. Rubbed on the tummy of a sick child, they are considered a cure-all, and oil collected from the cooked grubs is a valuable medicine in Ecuador. Doctors from the capital, Quito, now visit the jungles to buy it. It is yet to be tested scientifically, but the people here swear by it. They say it is even more effective when swallowed. Biologists like Tom Eisner now view the medicinal potential of insects like palm weevils very seriously.
You know, I think of insects as a vast treasury that is awaiting exploration.
And Tom is spearheading the search himself.
I've just caught a giant water beetle. This animal is not only big and beautiful, it's a chemical torpedo. When attacked, the animal gives off a noxious fluid from a pair of glands with which it is able to fend off fish. Any fish taking a chance on this beetle is in for a 1-2 punch. The secretion tastes like hell, and if swallowed, can make the fish really sick.
Small wonder, since it is loaded with a toxic steroid similar to the cortisone we use in pain-killing injections, and a single beetle contains as much as can be got from 200 cattle. Tom's search for medicines from nature is far from random. He looks for insects that seem vulnerable, but may have hidden protection.
This beetle pupa is a sitting duck. It has no obvious defenses, and it's easy to see. But does it have a secret weapon?
Using a typically homespun field trial, Tom sees how ants react to the pupa.
Few bold ones are moving in. They're touching the rear of the pupa where there are only spines. Watch the front end of the pupa. Ah, look at that. Oh, magnificent. Look at the activity now. You have waves of ants coming up to the pupa and taking off. It's as if there was a military exclusion zone. There's something about this pupa that ant hates. It's dramatic. When you have evidence of activity, you have to go after the chemical. We were fortunate with this pupa because the chemical came as little droplets on these hairs. These droplets turned out to be an entirely new type of chemical. And the fact that they are so potently anti-insectant raises immediate questions. Could they be a new kind of mosquito repellent? Could they be repellents that you can use in agricultural contexts? To find a new set of chemicals that repel insects is in itself a valuable find.
We have only just begun to look at the chemistry of insects.
The beetles in particular offer fantastic promise. There are millions out there. Only a fraction of them has even been named. Hardly any of them have been studied chemically. Who's to say what there might be out there in the line of medicinals? But we've got a real problem. Every year, there are fewer and fewer insects. If we want to find these chemicals, we better preserve what's out there.
It's come too late for many places, but the search for chemicals is providing fresh impetus in the fight to save rainforests.
It's not just insects, it's not just beetles. It's everything, it's nature. It's the one legacy that we've got to preserve. Beetles are wonderful, beetles are interesting. The next time you see a beetle, take a close look, wonder about it. You too might be infected with Beetlemania.